What's going on?
It's Dick King-Smith.
Who?
The man who wrote Babe. I mean the sheep pig. He's written hundreds of books for children. And look, there he is.
Wow! Never heard of him.
I started writing for children for the very simple reason that I had a good idea for a story. It was during the farming years, and I had a lot of chickens killed by a fox. And I thought, one of these days I'll have a bash at writing a story, which I suppose will be for children, where instead of the strong always vanquishing the weak are actually going to beat up the strong. The chickens are going to beat up the foxes.
Dick King-Smith wrote his very first book at the age of 54. This book was called The Foxbusters.
And it's brilliant!
It was decided that at the instant the foxes burst out into the yard, every available bird should fly at them as near as they dared and with the maximum of noise. Around the yard the roofs were black with grim, determined birds. All was silent. Then, at the instant the foxes broke from cover, the air above and around them became thick with swooping, diving, flapping fowls, dozens and dozens of them, all yelling at the tops of their voices. What had been a warning was now a cry.
Long nose! Long nose! Long, long, long nose!
They screamed. The foxes, completely surprised by the confusion of noise and beating wings, and by the pecks and scratches which some of the boldest birds delivered as they swooped over them, leapt and twirled and stood upon their hind legs to snarl and snap at their attackers. After a minute of this pandemonium, one of the foxes suddenly broke free, and leaving the others to fight the fowls, sprinted for the foot of the runged ladder. Simms banked sharply and released her egg with maximum velocity. And then suddenly the long nose threw up his paws, somersaulted backwards off the ladder, and crashed to the floor of the yard.
Ooh,
He's a gunner!
Since The Foxbusters, Dick has written over 100 books, mostly about animals. But some have humans in them too.
Yeah, but we don't read those.
My way of writing probably sounds pretty batty in this day and age, because I'm no good with machines of any sort. If I had something like a word processor, it would go wrong just at the sight of me. So I sit in my very small study in my very old cottage and look out at a very nice view, and in the morning I write in longhand. I scribble at high speed. I have all sorts of circles and arrows and asterisks and crossing outs and special signs that only I know. So really nobody could read what I've written. But I want to get it as good as I can before I get out my little old typewriter, little old portable typewriter, which I get out in the afternoon, and then with my right index finger, a very strong finger, I copy out onto the typewriter what I had scribbled and scrawled in the morning.
If you're an author, it helps if you have a regular time when you write, a comfortable place where you can write, something on paper at the end of the day.
It's true. Sometimes the best way to write is just to get on with it.
you've got to start somewhere.
I like to have the title fixed before I write the story. Sometimes it doesn't work out like that. Sometimes the story develops in my head rather quickly, so that I'm scribbling away, and I've perhaps got a little way before I think, shall I call it this or that or something else? But I'm happiest if I've got the title established. And picking titles for me is great fun. I like doing it. It's a sort of a game, really.
Like the Queen's nose. I love that one.
That sounds good. Is it about a wicked queen with a long nose?
Nope, it's about a 50p piece.
What?
See, Dick's really good at titles. They get you thinking.
Yeah, what about Jackie Dogford then? I like the one called Horse Pie.
I like the sheep pig.
Saddlebottom's the best book, no doubt about it.
Sheep pig, sheep pig, sheep pig.
A good title often helps a writer think up ideas. and can sometimes even be the starting point for a story.
Like the Hedgehog.
Don't you mean hedgehog?
No, it's about a hedgehog called the Hedgehog who gets all his words muddled.
How?
You'll find out.
By now it was quite late. The rush hour all over, the shops were shut, all was quiet.
I'll wait, thought Max. And then, when a car or lorry comes along, I'll cross in front of it.
Soon he saw something coming. It was a lorry. He was halfway across when he suddenly realised that the lorry hadn't slowed up at all and was almost on top of him, blinding him with its brilliant lights, deafening him with its thunderous roar.
It's not going to stop,
said Max.
Lorries only stop for people, not hedgehogs.
The sheer horror of this great monster passing above, with its huge wheels on either side of him, threw Max into a blind panic, and he made for the end of the crossing as fast as his legs would carry him. But he did not see the cyclist silently pedalling along close to the curb, and the cyclist did not see him until the last moment.
Wow! Was he all right?
Of course, he just got a bump on the head. And from then on, all his words came out front to back.
Oh, I see. Like Hedgehog.
That's tight. I mean, that's right.
I'm afraid that I have to confess I don't plan my stories like one should. Like everybody should, really. You know, plan the beginning and the middle and the end and the plot and the characters and the names and everything. I don't do that at all. And so a lot of the early writing will be sitting at my desk in my little study, staring out of the window and thinking. And that's the only way to make it happen, really. It's not ideal, but it suits me. In some ways, the earlier part of my life was all of the planning I needed to be a writer, I suppose. I've done a lot of things: soldier, farmer, salesman, factory worker, teacher. And all that gave me a lot of food for thought. In fact, it filled up my mental larder.
Dick King-Smith has lived and worked most of his life near the place where he was born, in Gloucestershire.
Look out! Here he comes!
Quiet.
Quiet as mice.
I am, I'm glad to say, a native of these parts. I was born a mile and a half that way. I live 3 miles that way, and I farmed for 20 years about 7 miles that way. So this is very much my line of country. I farmed for 20 years, and then I had to stop. I didn't want to. I was quite a good stock man. I liked the animals and I liked looking after the animals, but I was a very poor businessman.
Business can be very tricky.
The littlest thing can trip you up.
Watch out!
Yes, it's true. If you're bad with money, you can get in a heck of a mess.
People often ask me what my favourite farm animal is, and the answer is a pig. The thing I like about pigs is that they are very intelligent. And the next time you get a chance, if you ever do, to have a look into a pig's eyes, you do that. Look deep into a pig's eyes and you will see somebody very like yourself looking back at you.
What did Mamma mean? Pondered Saddlebottom. He will make himself useful, she'd said. But how? At that moment, the old rat appeared, walking along the top of the wall.
What's up then?
Said the rat. You feeling poorly?
My mother said I shall make myself useful,
said Saddlebottom.
You ever heard tell of pork?
He said.
No.
Or ham?
No.
Or sausages?
No. What are they? What are all these things?
All those things, said the rat slowly and deliberately, comes out of a pig. Humans eats pigs. That's what she meant. That's how you're gonna make yourself useful.
See, Dick really understands animals.
Especially us pigs.
Such a pity he had to leave farming.
It's a
crying, Stu!
It hurt, having wanted to farm, to have been a farmer for 20 years, and to finish up a failed farm. Having to watch the stock sold, the cows, the few chickens, the many ducks, the machinery, the implements, all passing into the hands of strangers. When my farming career came to an end, a kind friend got me a job selling things for a while, and then another kind friend got me a job working in a shoe factory, and then I came to teach here at this primary school. I taught at Farnborough Primary School for 7 years. That's to say from the age of 53 to the age of 60. 20 years ago, this was my classroom. And sometime after that, I wrote a book called The School Mouse, which was set in this very room. The School Mouse is about a female mouse who decides that she will be the first mouse to learn to read. And she peeps out of this hole while the teacher is hearing children read.
On each page was a large coloured picture, and below the picture a single word. The first picture, for example, was of a round red fruit, and below it was written apple. Flora had never seen an apple, so the sound the child made meant nothing to her. Nor had she yet in her short life set eyes on a loaf of bread or any of the other objects shown as the pages turned, until the child reached M. There was a picture that Flora immediately recognised, and below it were 5 little black marks on the paper. M-O-U-S-E. Well, said the teacher. Mouse, said the child, and in Flora's tiny brain something clicked. Once again she stared hungrily at those 5 little black marks. Mouse, she said to herself. Flora had begun to read.
When I was a boy, I did an awful lot of reading. I suppose my favourites probably were people like Beatrix Potter and books like The Wind in the Willows, and perhaps especially Rudyard Kipling, because I love The Jungle Book. I think it's a marvellous animal story.
See, if you ask me, all that reading and farming and teaching gave Dick simply loads of ideas for stories.
Definitely.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, by the time he started to write, he already had hundreds of stories in his head.
All waiting to come out.
Great!
People sometimes say, was it teaching that helped you towards writing for children? Or gave you ideas about it and so forth? And the answer really is no, because then, as now, I write books to amuse myself. I'm very glad that children like them. It's wonderful when they do. And they write from all over the world to tell me they do, which is marvellous. But I'm really doing it to amuse myself.
Most of Dick's story ideas come from the books he read, the places where he worked, the animals he cared for as a farmer. He especially loves to imagine what animals might say to each other if only they could speak. Hello, ladies.
Oh, isn't he gorgeous?
Truly, I can't look
I don't know what to do. Oh, I'm going